March
You're
14th.
already not close enough.
I'm
to your
not
mic.
close enough?
No, you're on the side. You're like this.
Okay.
On the side doesn't do it.
I call the meeting to order.
Much better.
March 14th. Roll call. 4 council are present, and Jerry Zimmerman's on the phone tonight, so all 5 council are present. First order of business is minutes of February 13th. I feel so weird. Okay. So the minutes of February 13th have been circulated. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. The minutes of February 14th were circulated. Any additions or corrections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Okay, first order of business is public hearing. I open the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak about the budget, please step up to the microphone. Okay, I close the public hearing, and first we're going to have Steve Cool talk about the budget, and Jim Lane also, but I would first like consideration of resolution number 1713 on the floor.
Move consideration of resolution 1713 to adopt the 2017-18 budget.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Mike, second by Jim, and we'll go to Steve Cool to start the discussion, and then council will follow.
Okay. This close enough?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Just briefly to summarize the budget, we had a lengthy discussion at last month's meeting. The only thing that we changed for the final budget was to remove the $45,000 purchase of the police car, and we substituted an annual lease amount of $9,000 as an estimated annual lease cost. That brings our projected budget for this year an estimated surplus of $12,900. Excuse me. And with the increase in property valuation and so forth, the total tax levy is just a hair over $10.80 per thousand, which is lowest it's been in a few years.
That's great.
So, other than that, that was all I had to comment on
Okay.
for the budget here. It is due tomorrow morning. Probably right after I get done here, I'll go back and I'll transmit the file to the Department of Management. So then Chris takes the paperwork down to the county tomorrow. Hopefully it will be on record with Department of Management by then and on time. So
Does council want to comment?
I have a question for Steve.
Discuss.
Steve, I was asked by a couple of residents what the increase in property values were as a result of the assessments that took place this past year. Do you have a number of the increase in valuation dollars that is attributable to the assessments that were performed last year?
yeah, just a second here. I don't have the gross valuation, but the taxable valuation for the current year that we're in, just a little over $70,200,000. For fiscal 18, taxable is a little bit over $74,100,000. With the rollback is approximately 50%, so double those amounts would be the gross values.
Okay.
So those actually increased about 6% this last year.
Okay. Thank you.
And this calendar year, of course, is also a tax assessment year. Last year was the off year. They just went ahead and assessed here. But the assessor has to assess again in the odd numbered year. It doesn't mean it'll increase, but it means they're gonna look.
Any other comments before voting? Discussion? Roll call vote.
Lane,
Aye.
Maher,
Aye.
Zimmerman,
Aye.
Haverkamp,
Aye.
Casada,
Aye.
carried.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Okay, thank you. I'll probably see you
Appreciate it.
next month or the month after for the
Right.
amendment.
Go get cracking.
Good luck with the rest of the tax year.
Okay, now we have Mark Renders. I'm sorry, Mark, of Mid-American Energy, and he wants a request for renewal of franchise for electric and natural gas service. Hi, Mark. Well,
Taller than me. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time tonight to talk about the renewals of the electric and natural gas franchises. More importantly, of course, thanks for the long-term partnership that Mid-Americans had with the community to serve you folks with the energy services that you have and need. I gave you all a packet of information. There's a lot of material in there, and I'm not going to go through it word by word and line by line, but I wanted you to have it so that if you have a question after you get out of here tonight or in the next couple days, you can give me a call. I left my business card with the mayor, and I think Steve has it, and Chris has it as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to get hold of me. But basically, the left-hand side just has some information about Mid-American. We are the largest privately owned wind generating utility in the United States right now. We are at about 60% wind powered at this stage, and we have a goal of reaching 85 in the next couple years, and ultimately 100% wind or renewable energy, I guess is probably the more accurate word, by the end of the next 10 years. So if there's a street light out in town, and you can share this ever how you communicate with your residents, but they can go online at midamericanenergy.com, anyone can, and just automatically plug in the address of where the street light is, the intersection. There's an order created right back at the Iowa City Service Center, and the guys get out there within a couple of weeks, hopefully, to fix that light. And then on the right-hand side is just kind of some basic information about the utility franchise business. If you're like I am, before I took this job 7 years ago, I didn't know a lot about the franchises, but basically it's just a legal agreement that allows us to use the public right-of-way here in town to use our electricity and natural gas facilities to serve you as customers. It's the only thing that's recognized by the Code of Iowa and the Iowa legislature, so that's why it's important not only for you folks, but for Mid-American as well. The next sheet back talks about the renewal time frame, renewal energy, franchise renewal information. Basically, the first step is what we're doing tonight. Just talk about the fact that the franchises are up for renewal. I see on the agenda you have a potential resolution to set the public hearing for April 11th, which is tremendous. If there's any changes of the agreements between now and then that you would like or Mr. Ballard would like, we can sure work on those before the public hearing comes about. Then, of course, at the public hearing, you can do first reading, waive second and third like you do all your other things and be done with this. Or you can take your a slower pace. It's entirely up to every community that I work with. Most of them, because this is fairly routine, just waive second and third. But that, again, is up to you folks sitting around the table right now. Kind of a new wrinkle in the franchise world in the last 10 years. If you read anything about the Des Moines franchise fee, they had some issues over there. You as have an opportunity, however, to add franchise fees to the new agreements. By all the situation in Des Moines that happened was they didn't have a revenue purpose statement, what they call a revenue purpose statement. That third sheet in, it says Mid-American requirements and information for city imposing franchise fees. At the bottom of that, there's a revenue purpose statement. It's kind of one paragraph block look. That basically is something you would have to pass as a council as part of the new franchises. If you want to include franchise fees, you certainly don't have to. But if you do want to include franchise fees, you have to have a reason to collect them so that you can spend it on street light repair, street repair, new city hall, new library, improvements and all those kinds of things. Police and fire safety equipment, all those kinds of things are covered with the revenue purpose statement. So if you choose to go that route, we need to do the revenue purpose statement. We can pass the franchises and not do fees at this point. We just put 0 at that section, and then let's say 3 years from now, different people around the table, where there's a need in the community to have franchise fees. It's a lot easier to amend the existing agreements rather than create new ones to do franchise fees. So I do about 25 of these renewals a year. Maybe 2 or 3 of them in Iowa choose to impose franchise fees on an annual basis. So we have about 655 communities we serve, and we have roughly 50 communities that have franchise fees in place.
How many do you serve in total?
650.
And only 50 have franchise
Right.
fees?
More and more every year because, of course, as you just went through the budget, you know how the dollars are always short. But again, that's entirely up to you. Another question?
I did.
Okay.
Didn't Des Moines get into an issue because these franchise fees were an indirect tax? So
Correct.
they were taken to court to have a judge declare them an unlawful tax, right?
Correct.
So
And-
this franchise fee that you are talking about tonight is a type of fee that would be assessed on the people of University Heights,
Correct.
right?
That is
So
correct.
it's an additional fee,
Yep.
an additional tax. And the first layer of franchise fees, are those revenue, or is that a tax that we are currently paying as residents?
I am not following that question, I guess.
Without the recommended revenue purpose statement, if you don't have that, we
Right.
just have the franchise fees. Are those fees for the use of the public right away, or is that a fee that is passed on to the residents of University Heights for the utility of having electric service?
There is no fee in place right now, and there wouldn't be unless you folks decide to do that as
Got
far
it.
as the new agreements.
There's
Good
been
question.
a significant change in the law since that Des Moines case, and
Right.
these aren't the kinds of, the sort of fee that Mr. Renders is talking about isn't the kind of franchise fee that was collected there and declared not to be permitted.
20 years ago, a couple of the bigger communities, Sioux City, Des Moines, Iowa City, and Coralville had it in place for quite a while as well. But now again, more and more smaller the communities are thinking of doing that. Mid-American's totally neutral on this. We don't take a side on a community deciding whether they want to do fees. We do collect the fee, no administrative costs, and we would remit the check back to the city on a quarterly basis. So let's say we get the new agreements in place by July 1, we'd collect July, August, and September, remit a check back to the city, and then start the process over again. So you get one 4 times a year. Yes, sir.
I've talked to Mark about this quite a bit. And as Steve pointed out, this was not available the last time we extended the franchise. This is a new law. And it does need a purpose to it. For us, approximate would be 1% would be $7,400. 5% would be $37,000 per year that we would obtain in fees. I do not intend to pursue this. I think it is a tax, period.
That's right.
Yeah,
It's a
just like-
clever tax.
Yeah. But, so I don't plan to pursue this, and if any counselor wants to, then I think I'll be happy to help and put stuff together and that kind of stuff. But I don't see a need to do this at this point, especially with other potential revenue sources that we're discussing and everything else. So I really don't want to get in. I really don't plan to do anything on this at this time.
Does any other council have an opinion?
I have a question for Mark. Mark, since this is a renewal for the use of the city's right-of-way, can you tell me where this document has changed? Because I didn't see a red line, although I found 2 documents in my packet, my council packet today. And I'd like to see a red line to see what language changed.
That'd be somewhat difficult because the one that was passed 10 years or 11 years ago is significantly different. I could work to get you something. The
That
one that we've created now, we worked together. Mid-American's team worked with an attorney out of Des Moines called his name is Ivan Weber.
Mm-hmm.
Ivan's kind of well known. I don't know, Steve, if you've known Ivan, I assume. He kind of represents cities' interests across Iowa. So we kind of came together, and he gave us his input, and we gave him it. So we came up with this 3 or 4 years ago. So this is our standard draft agreement. I can go back and look at the original and kind of show you.
A legal department, they can quickly whip up a red line, I would think. I would hope if anybody has the original, the original doc.
For example, there's a little bit more information about tree trimming in this one than the one that was passed a number of years ago, because Mid-America now, by the Iowa Utilities Board action as well as our own, we come through every 3 years now, every community we serve, and take tree limbs back off a power line, for example.
Right. For me, I feel more comfortable knowing exactly where changes happened to the proposal for 2017. A lot of things could have changed. I don't doubt that you wouldn't disclose those to us tonight, but I'd rather see the markup so I can feel comfortable exactly where changes took place.
Okay, we can try to work that out.
Super. And then the other one I wanted to ask you about is you have, Mid-American, of course, has the region, University Heights as its consumer base, and we are going through a renovation process in University Heights. And I read the clause in the agreement that discusses Mid-American moving its own poles or its equipment for the use of roads and alleyways. But I wanted to ask you, and actually ask council, if we could have some consensus tonight to change the language to the clause in the agreement that would help us incentivize both ourselves and Mid-American, that if we ever wanted to have them go underground because of the Melrose renovation project, beautification project, that maybe we can cost share going underground for some of those tall electrical poles that are on the south side of Melrose, which is a street here.
Right.
And it's only because the city is undergoing significant beautification efforts, and all of those wires would become a key issue to adding that enhancement or that beauty element to our city.
First of all, basically, all the new developments that occur in any community, we try to underground as much as physically possible and makes sense. We will work with you on that. Some communities have put a special assessment aside, like Fort Dodge. I don't know if you're familiar with Fort Dodge. I'm trying to think what the main highway is on the south side that goes in front of Trinity.
20.
Okay. That road leads, so they assessed everyone in town a fee for that for like 5 years to pay for all that undergrounding along that road. The relocation language, if we're working on a project together and you need us to move our stuff, we will do that at our cost.
Right, but it said for any public improvement. I guess read broadly, beautification would come within that, right? But read more around the
streets
sequence.
improvement
Right.
project. Yeah,
So,
streetscape.
So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if there's council consensus, I'd like to work with Steve Ballard
You need to get a little closer to your mic, so.
on exploring language that would be consistent with how we're trying to align the Envision program up and down Melrose. Any objections?
No, I don't object.
If I might say that, I think I don't know what the details are of the economics of it, but it seems to me that could be a very good point of negotiation for between the city and Mid-America, and that should be pursued before we build any new language into it that is locks us into one formula or another.
Thanks for your support, Jerry.
And Jim, you were going to say something.
Well, I support it. I would like to see it. I don't have a lot of confidence we'll get that changed personally,
I see.
since this is a
That's okay. You can stop there.
well, since it's a template, but we'll see.
Right.
I certainly think it's a good point, and we ought to try to.
I don't want to give you the wrong impression that Mid-American's going to pay for undergrounding everything on Melrose.
Nope, I'm not that Pollyanna.
Basically,
I'm pragmatic.
I mean, if you think about it, if another community wanted to do it, we put it back on the rate base that our customers pay. So if Sioux City wanted to do it, with the customers in University Heights want to pay for it, or Iowa City.
That's
so.
why I suggested we do some cost sharing
And
language.
that's
Right.
we can talk about that,
We
and
can
that's
talk
why I
about
talked about the Fort Dodge situation. I think Coralville also had one similar to that.
Right.
Was a kind of a cost sharing.
I think this is also advantageous for you because you don't have to worry about cellular attachments coming onto your poles as well, or cables. So there's lots of
they're
really
not,
good.
yeah, but they're not allowed actually on ours anyway. But points well taken, and we can talk about it.
All right.
What does council think of the franchise fee? I think some of the public would like to know about that.
I don't see any reason to pursue it now. No.
This revenue purpose? No, I'm
No.
in support of it. I think council has
I see
other
4
work to
no's.
do in order to justify an increase like that.
Okay, I see 4 no's there.
And so to that end, like on section 14 on the electric agreement and section 13, I think on the gas, we would just put 0
I see.
on there. And again, as I said, in the future, if a council changes their mind, we can amend that very easily. We have in the agreement that every 2 years we'll amend it. We have broken that and allowed communities a year. I did one that actually renewed the franchise, and then 3 months later they changed their mind and wanted to do franchise fees. So we amended it. It's not a problem. So don't be worried about that at all. We obviously want to be good partners and have a great relationship with the community. So whatever we need to do, we'll try to work it out.
And remind me again, you are asking for a 20-year period?
25 actually,
25.
but we could do 20 if
Okay,
that's
25.
as low as we go.
And
20.
before you were at 10?
10 with a reopener on another 10 years
Got it.
that
Perfect.
expired.
That's it. Thank you, Mark.
And we can do that. We have done 20 years with reopener language of 10.
Are there any other questions for Mark? Do you have any, Jerry?
I do not.
Okay.
Franchise summary was that next document back. That's kind of the Reader's Digest version. The other one is the kind that Mid-American's attorneys and Steve likes to read through. But those are the actual legal agreements. But the summary is kind of the one that I understand better. So if you look at that, that kind of gives you an overview of the whole things.
And Mark, just to clarify, you'll work on getting me a markup to council,
Yep,
right?
I will
Thank you.
see what I can do to that.
Okay, so we have consideration of resolution number 1714, and that's so that we can set a public hearing at the next regular council meeting.
I motion adoption to meet at April 11th via
Okay.
resolution 1714.
Second.
Motion by Sylvia, second by Jim. Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote.
Maher, Zimmerman,
Aye.
Haverkamp,
Aye.
Casada,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
carried.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks again for your time, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.
And you'll be talking with Steve and
Yep.
Sylvia.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
I'll probably just work through Steve, or you want,
That's
is that
perfectly fine.
good? Okay.
Thank you. Is it okay if I put public input a little bit later? Is that okay with the public that's here? And I say that because Dottie may need to leave a little early, and I want to change around some of the discussions on the agenda. And if that's okay, I'm going to go to One University Place construction report, and I see Mr. Maxwell's here tonight. Thanks for coming, Jeff.
Thank you for inviting me back. Jim Lane had asked if I could stop in and give just a brief update. The building number 2 is on schedule. We've had a wonderful winter to work on, and we're very grateful for that. Our schedule is such that this fall we'll start coming together. I'm going to guess the best McComas Scenic can tell me near the Thanksgiving time frame is when we'll be zooming in on our approaching the occupancy date. But again, we're coming in at a difficult time of the year as we were with building number 1. Our level of activity, we're a little bit disappointed so far with the residential activity that we've received, but we're in the process of going through some price analysis and cost analysis and taking a look at sales prices and stuff, and we'll be making some adjustments to those. So kind of testing the waters and seeing where we're at is bringing about some change in that regard. So schedule-wise, commercial space activity level has significantly increased in the last couple of weeks. There's a letter of intent signed with a coffee shop group that we're very excited about. The name of such is not ready to be announced yet, but obviously Maggie's Wood-Fired Oven Pizza, we're very, very anxious and ready for them to start their build-out. And there's other activities in the building that we're concerned. More showings are happening. The activity level's starting to pick up until this latest snowstorm, but I don't think that'll last too terribly long. So are there any questions that I could answer for anyone or try to?
The letter of intent, when's the contingency deadline on that?
Too much detail for me. I'm sorry, I don't know. It's real.
When's it going to get lifted?
Sorry, I can't give
I'm
you
not
the
looking
date.
at it, just-
Yeah. Well, you said Tom Gelman's is your-
Tom's working. Tom is working on drafting the actual contract with them. I don't know what the exact date is. I'm sorry. I should have known that, but I don't.
That's okay. You're probably.
Yeah, a lot of things I don't deal with too well. So, any other questions? The back building, we realize that there are some issues on building number 1 that are a little bit contingent on occupancy of number 2. There's some landscaping issues, some bioswale issues, the parking lot issues. There's some decisions to be made whether we go with pervious pavement or brick pavers for the additional row of automobile parking on the north edge. So both of those will satisfy, I think, the stormwater retention requirements, but it's done in 2 different means and products. So I'm sure we'll share with you what the decisions are going to be, but we're a little concerned about the long-term life of the pervious pavement with this climate. Historically, it's been challenging. Our paving contractors are suggesting we shy away from it. The Iowa Concrete Paving Association is saying don't do that. We can help you and work with you and make sure that the quality of that work is done to their standards as well. And with Josiah's input and Newman Munson's input, I think we'll come with a conclusion with that here fairly shortly. Landscaping-wise, the East Ravine is substantially completed, going into its maintenance period for several years. There'll be some tweaking and some changing of that as we move into the spring season. I think we've done a pretty good job of mitigating any deer damage during the course of the winter, but there'll be some of that. So there'll be some changes. Everything out there is flexible and fluid. We've got neighbors to the east we have made promises to that we'll continue to honor and want to work with them as things start to bloom in the spring and foliate. And so we may have a couple years of adjustments yet to make out there. And again, we're happy to do that.
And Judy Joyce is still working.
She is still working, and she's actually worked very closely with Dean Moore from a maintenance standpoint. So she'll maintain the monitoring and continue to make reports to council and to us as the developers. But she's going to yield, I think, to quality care for the mowing at her direction, any pruning that needs to be done, or any additional plant material. So we're looking forward to that spring, which is not too far away.
Jeff, I'm planning 2 MPO meetings here for other cities to come and
Yes.
see in May or June,
Mm-hmm.
maybe July. Who would I speak to about parking? Because then I wouldn't, depending on, I'd have to tell them the time they could
Sure.
park there.
Just continue to work with me.
To you?
I
Okay.
cannot tell you how pleased we are with Macoma-Cecina and the communications, the quality of the construction work, the way they go about dealing with, communicating with all of us. I'm just very, very grateful and very pleased that they were the selected contractors. They've just been a real joy to work with. So certainly inconvenience to the community during construction, but I think they've done an excellent job, and I'm very, very happy about that. So,
Well, that's good.
okay. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Jeff.
everyone.
Now, Dottie, we're going to move to the police report. So let me look. It's community protection, and we're going to go to consideration of request by former police chief Ken Stanley, who I see's here. Welcome, Ken. For payment of unused holiday and vacation time. Ken, would you like to speak? Thank you.
If I might, I'm having a hard time hearing some of the.
Yeah,
I can hear the council.
Yeah.
I can hear the
that's a
council,
good
I can hear
idea.
the mayor, but I
Right.
can't.
Well, now Ken has just walked up to the microphone, so you should say something, Ken.
Hi.
Can you hear Ken?
Hey, Jerry.
Hello, barely.
All right. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to set you. We won't be able to hear you, but I'm going to set you over closer to where Ken is speaking from.
Okay, that's probably more important.
I'd like to start by just saying it's good to see everybody again. Louise, how does it feel to be back in the saddle?
Great. Thank you.
Well, is everyone in possession of the email that was sent by Steve Ballard?
Yes.
Okay. I'm here tonight to request that the council approve option number 3 on the list here. And I think I can very briefly explain my reasonings for that. If everybody remembers back in 2015, both Matt Fort and Shelley Miller had quit the police department, and essentially I was running the police department with just Nick and myself. I hired 3 new employees, Chris Lyon being one of them, Nick Sherman, and Lee Simcox, all 3 of which went to the academy from July 2015 to December 2015. So for a period of 5 months, I was here. It was just me and Nick running the police department. After the 3 employees graduated in December, you may remember that I had talked to you guys about getting my new officers some training up in Cedar Rapids, and they went up there for 60 days each. Chris hasn't gone yet, but Jake was the first to go, and then Lee Simcox went. Jake went for 2 months, and then Lee Simcox went for 2 months. Now, so during that period of time, and then one more element too is at the end of fiscal year 2014, I ended the policy from the former police chief to no longer have the payouts of unused vacation time. And I asked my employees for the fiscal year of 15 and 16 to use up all of their vacation time with the exception of 30 hours, which I allowed them to roll over into fiscal year 16-17. Okay, so when you look at the fact that for 5.5 months I had almost no employees, then when I did have these guys graduate from the academy, they were gone. Then on top of that, they were using up all of their vacation time to end up with almost a zero balance by the end of the year. It essentially left me, or it put me in a position where I wasn't able to use up my time. And because there would have been nobody here, literally, to run the police department if I had taken off on vacation and used up my time. And Chris Lyon will tell you that at the end of fiscal year 2016, I went to Chris and I said, hey, I need your opinion here. What do you think I should do? I made you guys use up all your vacation time to end this policy of these payouts. However, I wasn't able to use my time. Do I look like a hypocrite in front of my employees and get paid out for my unused time, which I prevented them from doing, or do I roll it over into the next fiscal year and then try to use up as much time as I could? We both agreed that it would look best to my employees not to take a payout and to roll that time over into the next fiscal year. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to use up all that time.
That was in July of 2016.
Yes. And, I mean, Chris is right here. I mean, he can verify we had that conversation. Now, let me also say that in retrospect, knowing everything that I know today, if I could go back and do this over again, I certainly would have ran this by Jerry. I would have ran it by Dottie. you know, at the time I thought I was doing the right thing. I ran it by Chris, who I have a lot of trust in. I thought I made the best decision that I could. And so I'm here tonight to merely ask that the city approve the payout of the time that I did earn, that because of the circumstances of running a police department with less than, you know, optimal number of employees, it literally put me in a position, unless of course I wanted to be derelict in my own duties and just say, it wouldn't have been the right thing for me to do, to take vacation time when I had so few employees. The city would have suffered. And so I guess that's my argument.
And so this is option 3 that you
Yes.
picked.
So, if I may,
Yes.
so let me clarify one thing. The option 3, so to speak, on the email that I sent to Ken includes the amount that I indicated in my email, in my legal report, that there wasn't any doubt that the council owed. There's 50 hours. So I guess I don't know whether you've received that check for that.
I did. I got it tonight.
So then it would, I think the request would properly be sort of option 3 in my legal report, which is 114 hours, not 164, because you've already been compensated for the 50 hours, Ken. If that makes sense.
Let's see. Yes, you're right, 114.
Okay.
Yeah. And I just got that check just like 10 minutes ago.
Any other questions for Ken? Some might have questions for Lori also. I don't know.
My questions are for Dottie and Jerry. I want to know what their opinion is on this and where we should go on it. I mean, it's a police committee matter in my estimation, and the council, I don't need, I mean, I could analyze a whole bunch of this stuff, but I think it needs to come from the police committee as to what we ought to be doing.
Yeah, these, from my experience, these things, after and because you lose any input into the fact, well, into Ken's control over the employment and the hour situation. So those who are supposedly responsible for these things can't take care of their own responsibilities because they are not consulted in a timely way. So I'm against this. It's a bunch of money. Ken was in charge of these hours for the most part. He didn't consult with anybody else, and I think it was too bad. A compromise might have been possible. A plan might have been possible, but to represent it with an after the fact, I think it's too much money, too late.
I want to know, under the had the new policy, had you not adopted the policy that you did in 2016, would you have gotten all of this paid out? Had you not adopted the policy in 2016,
Yes,
you wouldn't be here tonight asking for
I would
this
not.
amount.
I would not.
Okay.
And again, the reason why I ended that policy is because it amounted essentially to $20,000 out of my budget that I just felt was, these guys are given vacation. They should use their vacation. And it just seemed to me that the payouts that was happening for many years was, and this is nothing against Ron Fort, but it just seemed like a little bit of a boondoggle. And I thought that the department could be better run by asking guys to use their allotted vacation. It just, when I had only 2 employees, myself and one other, for nearly half a year, I couldn't very well take off and go on vacation. and like I said, that would have left me really kind of derelict in my duties as a police chief to do so.
This is Dottie speaking. I feel, as Ken stated, that it is sad that he didn't come to us and talk to us on the police committee and just say, this is the situation, how do you think we should solve it, and solve it together. But, you know, in retrospect, everything is understandable, you know. And I certainly believe that he should receive some compensation for this. If, you know, if not 114, something very near that, because he has admitted now tonight that he was in error in not seeking my opinion and Jerry's opinion. And I think he's learned something from this experience, and I don't really feel that he should be severely penalized.
Steve, can you, the check that was handed over tonight to Ken, this check belongs to which scenario in your memo?
Yeah. Yeah, the check, what Mike said is accurate, so it's the 50 hours, so there was an amount that was, no matter how you looked at it, it was owed, and so wages owed get paid, and that's why that was paid.
In your memo, you also mentioned that had the chief obtained counsel permission, not just Jerry or Dottie, but counsel, because the police department reports to counsel, which scenario would that have been on your memorandum?
Well, it could have been.
Is it two or?
Well, it could have been any of them.
Okay.
I mean, you know, the council, the policy had said no more than 40 hours.
Right. What I'm getting at is I want to go for a favorable. I think this council would have been hard pressed back in time saying no to an exception from a policy under the circumstances. Although, Ken, I got to tell you, 1 week University Heights did not have any of our cops in the city because they were all training out of Johnson County somewhere. So, you know, I'm kind of weighing that factor in too about the argument, but I think council may have had a general consensus, and I'm more concerned about preserving the intent of the new policy that you promoted, which, Steve, can you walk me through council back then, let's just an ideal council back then who would have approved an exception to the policy under the new adopted policy for no payouts? Which of these would it have been? Which of these buckets of options would it have been?
Yeah, so let me try to answer or explain what I see as the situation. The old policy said that there can be carryover.
Right.
The maximum carryover is 40 hours.
Got it.
And to have carryover of any amount, but no more than 40 hours, you have to have your supervisor's approval.
Right.
And in the case of the chief, you know, that's the council, the supervisor. Had the council said, well, that's our policy, but there are some extenuating circumstances that lead you to ask for more than 40 hours, it's clearly within the council's discretion to essentially let the chief carry over more than 40 hours, and the full amount that he's requested for the reasons that the chief has said is 114. So I don't know if that answers your question, Sylvia, but that's what I can say.
Well, I'm thinking that, okay, never mind. That would be a conclusion on my end, and I'm not ready to reach one.
You know, I would just like to add that I would have loved to have burned up that vacation time and followed on, you know, done exactly like I asked my employees to, but that literally would have meant that there wouldn't have been anybody here. And again, I feel that that would have not, that the city would have suffered had I made that decision to just use up my vacation time regardless of the consequences. So on behalf of the city, I thought I made the right decision.
Does anybody want to make a motion on how to resolve this. Jerry, are you interested in making a motion on the police committee, or Dottie, are you interested?
Yeah, I could make a motion to approve his request. How many hours was that?
114.
114. I think that Steve, I think I would be inclined to make a motion to grant him the 114 hours. I think that we failed perhaps as a council, and he failed to communicate with us as a council. I think there was a breakdown in communications. I really don't want to penalize him based on that, so I would make a motion to grant the 114 hours.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion
Okay.
for discussion.
So further discussion now. So there's a motion, Jerry, did you hear that on the table? By
There was a
Dottie?
motion.
To approve 114 hours that he's requesting. And
Yes.
there was a second for further discussion.
I would reduce the number of hours. I would, as I said, I'm opposed to it. I would give him what, so would reduce it to, well, let's just talk about that motion and see where it goes.
Okay.
I'm opposed to that.
Would anyone else like to discuss it further?
I look for a compromise.
I'm interested in a
Position.
different compromise.
If somebody has,
So I will not be supporting this motion.
Okay, Sylvia said, did you hear Sylvia? She said she's not supporting this motion. She wants a different compromise.
So I motion,
yeah,
I motion
you
to
could
close
propose,
discussion.
that'd be great.
Okay, there's a motion to close discussion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's a second, Sylvia and Mike. All in favor of closing discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's 4. And say no. If are you abstaining? You're abstaining. Okay. So discussion is closed. So we'll go to the vote. All in favor of the motion of 114 hours to Ken Stanley, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, say no.
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 Okay, so it's 1 aye from Dottie, and the rest is no. So that fails. So would someone like talk about a compromise?
I think that given that 40 hours of vacation time would have been the maximum carryover in a typical situation, I understand we were in exceptional circumstances. I guess what I would recommend is that 60 hours, so it's 1.5 times what should have been the regular carryover. I would make a motion that we would approve 60 hours of vacation time.
I second that.
Okay, there's a motion by Mike and a second by Jerry to permit 60 hours of payment for Ken Stanley. A discussion.
So this is above the 50.
This
The
is
50's
above the
already
50.
got.
Above the
This would take what would have been under the old policy, the maximum amount allowed, and give 50% more.
I still have concerns over the compromise, and I'm going to be very, very clear as to why. We had a change of policy, and the policy was written by the same individual who is now requesting that we make a post-employment separation exception to the policy. And I think it's a bad precedent to set going forward as a city council to compensate 1.5 times more than what would have been the actual value had the policy been respected and appropriately managed. So I will not be supporting this motion, but I still look forward to a compromise of 40 hours of vacation, which is in the legal department's memo option 2, because that would have been the right outcome had the chief come to council and said, I need an extension because I didn't manage my time and under these circumstances, and now I need you all to take that into effect and help me out. Otherwise, we're setting a precedent to negotiate everything away. So your policies don't mean anything as a city.
If I might, I don't think there's anything precedential about that. What I think should be precedential, and is not necessarily so, but it should be, is that if anybody gets into that position, they should come to the council before the fact rather than after the fact and see if some understanding can be reached.
That's what I said. I said if we don't manage it this way, we're getting into that story.
Well, I think the council, I think in many respects, Ken took license that he was given by the council to not be answerable in many respects. It was more a policy of ask permission later. In this context, that can't work and won't work. That should be the message.
Any other comments by council? So the motion on the table is to pay Ken Stanley 60 hours above the 50 hours that he was paid for tonight. Council ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, and opposed, say no.
No.
Okay, so it's 4-1, and it passes. So Lori will pay 60 hours. Council decided.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, so Dottie, we'll go back to the beginning of the police report, and we'll go to Interim Chief Chris Lyon. He has a couple of requests. You got to speak right in the microphone. I hope I'm doing that.
Is that good, Mike?
Good.
There we go. All right, I won't move.
You have a good voice.
There we go. I don't have a lot to add to the things I just put in there as far as staff report. Jerry, I provided a answer for you on the vehicle bid. Hopefully you got that by email, if that answers the question. Also, Jerry, you had asked about merit-based wage increase. I put some info on that. I don't know if the council wants to decide on that tonight with everything else going on, but I believe at last meeting there was a discussion about wage increases. And then, Louise, I don't know if you wanted to talk about this, but I had requested to Louise that we increase our internet contract since the community center is using it.
In a memo over the weekend.
Yeah, that the community center is using it and the police department's using it. And it's the current contract we're on. I don't know how long it has been, but right now we're paying $220. But for less money, we could get faster internet. So I put a few options on there. My request would be that we re-sign the new 2-year contract. Would be about $300 a month, which would get us 105 megabits down and 10 up. The upload would be nice for sending, Mike can attest to that, for sending videos and photos. Do you want to go on to other things, or do you want to talk about that first?
And, yes, and you also, I had you check on any other companies besides Mediacom Business. Would you speak to that?
Yeah, there are other companies that would do DSL and slower internet connections, but Mediacom's really the only one that would provide cable internet to here.
And I also looked into it just talking to some business people that I know, and it's surprising
You're off to the
what
side
they
again,
charge
please.
businesses and then what they charge home, residents in our, in our home. It's just night and day.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you put it in the report that you're charged. Didn't you put it somewhere that you were charged a certain, at your home? And I can't even remember all
Yeah, I don't remember the number, but it's.
the MBPSs and everything, and that was.
I think my home internet is
it
faster
was
than this
like
and
a
cheaper
fourth of
through
it.
Mediacom. Yeah,
A
so
fourth of it.
go figure.
But what you would prefer is the $299.95, and we're paying $219.90 a month.
Right.
And the reason is because of data and video transmitting, and
Yeah, that the community center would be using it more now, theoretically, if you're running out this for events. If you wanted to do video streaming with the projector or something like that, you would need faster upload speed.
Mike, do you have an opinion on it?
I think what Chris is talking about is very reasonable. And he and I have actually talked about this in larger context of other tech issues. No, I think it's fine.
Did you check with IMON to see how competitive their prices might be?
I'm on.
Mhm.
I'm not familiar with them. As far as I know, Mediacom is the only one that provides cable internet. I don't know if that provides DSL or something slower, but
Part of that is we need to have a static IP.
So we need permission from council to go ahead with this contract, and we can
Yeah.
just do it by vote motion. Simple.
Can you remind me again what the terms of the contract are? For how long? For 2 years?
it was 2 years.
What?
$299.95 per month.
And it's currently, we're paying $219.90 per month.
Yeah, it'd be 10 times as fast up and down. So
I move that we direct the chief to negotiate a new contract.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Mike, second by Dottie. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries. We'll get that signed
okay, sounds
in the
good.
morning.
One of the other questions I had, I'd talked to Lori about whether or not we could reimburse employees, especially now we kind of down to 2 patrol cars, so we don't really have an extra one for people to drive to training. And I don't know if this has been the policy in the past that the council could reimburse city employees, like the state mileage rate, to go to and from training. To me, that seems fair if you're asking someone to drive their personal car to Des Moines to the academy, that they get reimbursed.
Which is 39 cents a mile.
Yeah, that was the most current I could find. That was 2016. I don't think they have a 2017 yet.
Did the police committee have a recommendation? Do you recommend that, Dottie?
I would recommend it if they're driving their personal car. You know.
You agree, Jerry? If they're driving their personal car? Okay.
Sorry?
So, we got a simple consensus by the council that we'll do that.
I have
Policy.
a question, however. Why
Yes.
are we going to Des Moines for training as opposed to, I thought we were sending officers to Cedar Rapids, or is this different training?
Yeah, this is sort of different training. Like, we just had somebody take a taser instructor class. A lot of those are at ILEA and only at ILEA.
Oh,
Some of
okay.
the more
This is
advanced
not-
classes. This isn't just the academy, yeah.
Fine, thank
Right.
you.
That's right.
And that's really all I had, unless someone had questions for me.
Do we need to change the web address if you guys have a new server for the police?
I think I can talk to you about that. It's working right now. That's something I could tell you, is that the new website is up. I've been working on one. If you go to the same old web address,
Right.
it'll
You
come up.
changed the DNS.
So. But we can cancel that Omni website. Okay. Anything else for me?
No, I think we're
Okay,
good.
thank you.
Chris. We want to talk about the open process for police chief discussion. Dottie, do you want to tell about what you had done for the police chief search? You know, you had Steve's office, or you had Chris put it on the website,
Correct.
and then you had the police chiefs. The police chief association,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And then,
And you expanded it to.
and then we expanded it to, Steve, could you say the offices that it was
Yes.
expanded to?
Right. So we put it on the police chiefs as indicated. It's been sent to the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy, to the Iowa League of Cities, and I think that's it.
I think that's it too.
Yeah.
And I might as well say it here. I just thought this would be a good place to start, Sylvia. Is I spoke with Chief Hargadine from, the former chief of Iowa City, and I reached out to him, and in his response, he said, okay, that's my email. Let me look at the email. Has the position been listed with IACP, the International Association of Chiefs of Police, is the #1 place to look for chief jobs. And I think it's free for employers or municipalities. And so he put a link here, and I sent it to Steve. And what did you find out, Steve?
So I got signed up with that association, and they emailed me to say that we could go ahead and post, and I started to do that, and it said it's $200. So I didn't spend it, but I will if the council wants.
Yeah, and Chief Hargadine said it's the #1 place to look for chief jobs. And I was going to recheck it, but I think Steve can research it, and he knows that it's $200 fee. I think I can trust you, Steve. I was thinking about checking.
Yeah, it was actually an interesting, like it gave you these different, if you're looking for an officer with no experience, it's free.
Oh.
I didn't think the council probably wanted that. I don't know, maybe, I guess you wouldn't have to hire them, but it seems like you're going to probably get a flood of applicants.
And so Steve said we should bring it to council to see if we should post it in the #1 spot, is what Chief Hargadine says. And so we haven't received a lot of applications. Of course, we got from Chris, and then we have one other.
Just two.
Just two. Yeah, we have 2 more weeks. The deadline is March 31st.
And that's part of the reason I brought up the open process for police chief as
Mhm.
an item. But before I go into that, I will motion that because this is the largest department in the city's budget, it's about $500,000, slightly over. It requires a great deal of expertise and responsibility and maturity. And I think if we're going to be serious about this investment in the community, $200 is part of the process. So I would motion to authorize the city attorney to expend $200 for posting in what is referenced tonight as the #1 job board for police chiefs, and let the competition begin.
Okay, a motion by Sylvia. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Jim. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Oh, Jerry, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, if I could just ask a question. What is the process if we get interviewees from, or potential interviewees, or from California or Massachusetts? Do we pay their way in to be interviewed?
No.
No.
I think, Jerry, I would think Skype and some other
Yeah.
more technology pieces would be available, especially for the initial interview.
And when I've done interviewing with Johnson County for different organizations that I chaired, we did Skype and we did phone interviews for people that were even in Wisconsin or close, Minnesota.
Ken came.
Yeah, this is just a particularly salient position in a community that I'm not sure my experience with Skype interviews would lead me to want to do it over Skype. But obviously others have other views, and that's fine.
Well, I think it's an initial one. If we like the person, we told them to come in if they were still interested, because they're checking us out too, as we're checking them out. So is that okay, Jerry?
That's fine. Yeah, no, I think we should move ahead and advertise there. So I don't think there's any question about it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries. Yes, was. And Sylvia, you wanted to talk a little bit more about the process, I know.
That's right. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'd like to get some consensus from council tonight because there is a looming deadline of March the 31st, which I would like to recommend tonight that we also extend it to give ourselves a bit more room to navigate collection of interested applicants. But more importantly, this is about the city making a significant investment in a long-term relationship. It's the relationship between the chief, who will manage and liaison with council and the community, the UHPD. And as a result, I looked back at how we have hired in the past, and I think we've done a pretty good job in the process. And I think with every process you learn something, and in particular this year, I learned a number of things by observing what Iowa City and Coralville did with their chiefs being selected. What I liked about these two cities is that they invited the public to be a part of the meet and greet process of these applicants. And that made me think that the current composition of the selection committee, as I understand, is the mayor, 2 members of the safety committee, which would be Jerry and Dottie, and the legal department, and perhaps a volunteer chief from the county who volunteers to be on board with a meeting or with an applicant or 2. My point is very simple. I think we need to have 1 or 2 residents from University Heights to also be part of the selection process. University Heights is not an urban community. It is not a rural community. We're something right in between. And we also have a large university employer and a large hospital to add to the characteristics of our city. And I think that we need input and feedback from independent individuals who will relate to this person at a different level than will legal, than will the mayor, and the counselors who are involved in the process. And because we have such an important position that makes lots of daily contact with the public, it's really important that we have an extra pair of expertise types of eyes to come on board in the selection process. And that's why I'd like to get consensus that we open up at minimum 2 spaces in the selection committee to be provided to members of the community who would be dedicated to work with the mayor and the committee in the selection process. And
I think that's a good idea, Sylvia, and I say that because just because of the whole process, and we did it before, and it's not like they have a vote, but they have an opinion.
Right.
And it's important to hear from the residents, too, who know the city. And I was visiting with one resident and talking about this, and it was Gloria Jacobson. And I said, Gloria, if the council would have people on the public, the community, would you be interested? And she said, yes, I would. I would be interested. I've been through the process before, and I would be. And actually, somebody else asked me, even before I was just thinking about the appointment, and someone called me and said, I want to be on the committee for the police chief search. And I said, okay, I'll make a note of it. But so I'm sure there's other people too who might be interested.
I think we can get plenty. And then the second point of the request tonight for council consensus is, I'd like to see us do what Coralville and Iowa City did well, and that is they allowed the public to come and visit with the applicant before an offer was extended or a selection was even made. So I'd like to see those two items opened
Well,
up.
that was part of the meet and greet.
That's right.
Yeah, and I would fully support the meet and greet. The council has the ultimate decision on the hiring. So, although I wouldn't object to a citizen or 2 for their input, the council has the responsibility for the selection.
So I will motion tonight that we adopt a 2-part prong to the police chief search. 1, to include the appointment of 2 University Heights residents and to require a meet and greet before any offer is extended or a final applicant selected.
And the meet and greet doesn't have to be during a council meeting. It could be whenever,
No,
right?
No, they can be whenever,
Okay.
right?
So Sylvia made that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Dottie seconded it. Further discussion by council?
Are you talking about all finalist candidates, or are you talking about a selected finalist
No,
for the meet and greet?
all finalists. So if we have a pool of 5 and only 2 proceed to a final selection, then it would be those 2.
Well, and it may not be that. It may be that there's 5. Well,
Just hypothetically, I have no idea.
I think in Iowa City there were like, weren't there 4 finalists or something?
That's right. Coralville as well.
And Coralville also.
Mike, you were in the process before,
yeah,
and
we had 7 total applicants the last time we hired. I guess, to me, I would think that it would be the kind of thing that you would do that as that there would be a preliminary, a recommendation out of the committee, there would be some kind of a meet and greet, and then a council meeting. I would think that would be with who the committee has selected as their top candidate. I don't think, given the size of our town, that we're going to bring in multiple candidates to do that. If that was the way we'd proceed, I could see it happening that way.
You wouldn't see it with 2. So if we had 3 candidates and those 3, you ranked 1 and 2 as your best, as your two choices, would you not have the public meet the 2, or would you only have the public?
I have a feeling that
Because you might
if
as well
this
run.
if this is anything like hiring a superintendent, or the things that I'm familiar with, unless you have at least the preliminary offer, you're not going to want to be announced as a candidate for other jobs. So I think it would make most sense to have the committee selects a finalist, and then that person has a meet and greet before there's a final selection by the council.
Sure.
or maybe it could just be as we go through the process, we could see if it would be 1 or 2. I mean,
From
Yeah.
a practical standpoint,
I've gone through the superintendent thing, so I get that. And
I don't have anything against meet and greets. I just don't know what help or validity they have other than political expediency of bringing more people into the discussion, which is always good. But if we're going to have 2 citizens in an advisory capacity on the committee, I would think that's sufficient representation. I don't think there's much you can get out of a meet and greet, having been to too many to want to remember. I don't think there's too much one can get out of it. I don't know of any data to suggest that it has any validity at all. And I think the 2 people on the committee in an advisory capacity could play that role much more effectively.
I think the meet and greet is a natural checks and balance on the 2 residents who would be part of the committee. That's all. Because you're not going to have the rest of the city participating. And again, those 2 will be appointments.
Well, let's decide now if they're advisors or are they voting members, because that's what I want to hear about how
Oh.
we're going to handle those. 'Cause I don't want to go down the road. of-
right, I thought.
Well, let me
Because
ask-
I'm
Yeah.
hearing 2 different
That's-
things here
okay.
tonight.
Let me ask a question right now. Legal and the visiting chief, what are their rights in this committee? What does legal do? What does legal get to do? And what does the volunteer chief, who has been a part of the selection process, what do they get to do? Do they cast a vote?
No, they don't. What you did before was set it up. Right? You kind of acted as the
HR?
Yeah, HR. Yeah, there you go.
So
Would
the-
you say that?
Yeah, I would. The only thing I was hesitating about, and you guys can correct me, I don't remember voting. I don't remember that I voted, but I don't remember that the committee voted. I recall.
We had consensus.
Yes.
We had consensus.
Was legal or the visiting chief part of the consensus process?
We asked for their opinions. But I will tell you it was a consensus of the two counselors and the mayor that served on the committee. We also had an officer that served, one of our own officers, and yeah. I mean, we asked.
So I would feel comfortable giving our residents, the two residents appointed, the same level of influence that the mayor and the two counselors have on board.
I would object to that. I think the people that are responsible for the oversight of the police, in conjunction with the other persons on the council that are responsible for the police department, should be the voting parties. We can take input from the public, but they should not be voting.
That's fine, so long as input is not obstructed, and it's invited and it's required from these individuals, citizens. I'm comfortable with that. What do you think, Louise?
I think that we should get their input, but when I've been in this process, even in the county, we had a consensus of everyone in the room, including HR. Luckily, we didn't come down to, I want this person, you want that person. It was always a consensus. And so I think the best candidate will rise to the top and we'll have a consensus. So I think we need their opinion. I would prefer they not vote.
So, Jim, there's a clarification, I think.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get it because I'm hearing different words. I do think that we as a council need to ask those residents, if they're serving on an advisory committee, do you have a minority report?
A what?
Minority report. In other words, do you have a disagreement on any of the particular
Oh.
pieces? If we're going to let them serve, you know, I don't want them to be overrun, and we don't hear their input around that sort of
No,
stuff.
me neither.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I think I will go back and say that I'm proposing a resolution tonight to have the nomination of two residents to join the search committee for the next UHPD chief. These two individuals will not have a right to vote, but they will have full participation and discussion rights as any other member from council or any other elected official in that committee. And two, that we will have an opportunity to meet and greet, depending on the circumstances, either the finalist or say two semifinalists or whatever the finalist items might be.
And who will appoint these citizens? Is it the safety committee?
Appointments have to be ratified by council, correct, Steve?
I don't think so.
He said yes.
Yeah, the chief. What the statute says is that the chief is appointed by the mayor, subject to the approval of the council.
Sylvia's talking about
Council.
appointing
But appointments
appointing
are
citizens to the search committee.
Excuse me. Yes, that's a council decision.
So we have that motion on the table. I don't want to forget later on the deadline, because you
Right.
mentioned that later.
Right.
So
No, that's-
remind me of that too.
So if we can, I'll nominate to end
But
discussion.
we better just talk about these 2 points right now. And so, does everyone understand the motion? I think it was good to clarify it like that. So, all in favor, say aye.
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 Could we clarify it so is it that there are two citizens on the committee
Yes.
in an advisory capacity
Yes.
Yeah.
are appointed by the council?
Right.
Okay.
And then the second part was the meet and greet of the finalists or the two semifinalists or whatever the committee comes out with. Those are the 2 points, Jerry.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. And then the deadline. I didn't want to forget.
Right.
that.
Now, today is the 14th of March, which means in about 2 weeks we are purportedly closing this season for looking for the next UHPD chief. I think it's too soon. We need to give ourselves more time, unless an employer generally has an idea of who will be applying or has encouraged individuals to apply. This is a very quick turnaround, and I would like to make sure that the city gets the best available opportunities to make a selection. So I'm asking tonight that we get consensus so that we can extend until the end of April, the last week of April, so April.
Well, at
3rd.
April 11th, and thinking about it, that's when the council could have the citizens approved for the committee.
Mhm.
April 11th, and then you're recommending April 30th.
Well, how about May? Push it into May then.
A long time.
Oh my goodness.
Especially if you're going to be publicizing in the Post.
Yeah.
A 90-day window in total. I just think that
I think it's too long, Sylvia.
Yeah,
I would prefer to do April 11th.
April 11th.
Yeah, I agree we need to extend, especially with going on, and that would still be at least a month,
Right.
because
Well,
I'm assuming Steve will get this posted.
anything but 2 weeks is what I'm looking
No,
at.
I understand. I understand.
Thank you.
So I see Dottie thinks it's too long, and Jim thinks it's too long, and Mike does. So you're proposing
I propose
April
April 11th, and,
April 11th because that's the next council
and I'm
meeting.
willing at the next meeting to talk about it again if it doesn't, where we stand. But
Right.
at this point, I'd like to leave it at April 11th.
Are you putting that as a motion?
Yeah, I move that
Okay.
we extend the application process to April the 11th.
I'll
Right.
second.
Okay, and a second by Dottie. Did you get that, Jerry?
I did.
You did or didn't?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Okay, opposed say no. Okay, motion carries 5-0. Okay, now, is there anything else with the process?
No,
Okay.
those were my three
Very good.
comments.
Committee report, and,
Can we get back to public input? And we've got people
Yeah.
waiting.
well, can I just finish this up, or do you not want to? Is the committee report long, Dottie, for the police?
On the police, I have nothing.
Okay, perfect. Okay, we'll go to public input. So anyone who'd like to speak to the city council and mayor, please step forward and state your name and address. Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to mayor's report. And I circulated a mayor's report, and the only thing I wanted to add is, the March 7th work session was canceled, and we moved it to, it's rescheduled on Wednesday, March 22nd at 7 p.m. for the policy and procedures of the community center. And so that's next Wednesday. If you don't have any questions for me with my report, we'll go to the legal report.
I have one.
Oh, you have a question?
We've normally done a residence handbook every 2 years, and I'm not sure that's been assigned for this year. It's been 2 years. Usually it comes out in the spring. I don't think we ought to move on it until we at least go through our football parking form and get that accomplished. But I think we ought to.
Well, I thought it was the year that the council came in,
Well,
because now
haven't
we
done
have
it in a while.
elections in the fall. But I think it needs to be updated.
Yeah.
Absolutely needs to be updated. Are you thinking of physical that you a handbook
Yes.
that's passed out?
Yes.
Is that what you're thinking? Okay. I'd be glad to work on that. And maybe
I'd be glad to help.
you'll help me with
Yeah.
it.
I think everybody has to help.
I think
We all
so
would.
too. We'll have to send out emails and say, look at this section. Is there any additions or correct? Good point, Sylvia. Was there
we
any?
won't do it till we get the football
Right.
parking thing resolved. I think that needs to be part of that.
Because
I
it's
guess I gotta put
important
that
for
back on
new,
my list,
for
don't
new
I?
tenants.
Yeah, that's just a reminder on that one. too.
Thank you for the reminder. You know, I was looking at your issues on my table, and I guess I put it aside. Okay, legal report, Steve.
Thank you. Not much to add to my written report, but the action items on the agenda are Resolution 1715, which yet again extends, well, this one extends the moratorium on the telecom small wireless facilities. The ordinance is underway. We've postponed consideration a couple of times. That's the part that's, I guess, repetitious. But the reason's different. The legislature is considering a couple of bills, one of which is passed out of committee in the Senate, so it survived the first funnel, as it's known, that would really restrict and certainly define a city's ability to regulate these sorts of facilities at all. So, speaking with Josiah and Sylvia, it just didn't make sense to spend a lot of time adopting an ordinance that might be preempted by the state law in the next couple of months. So, Resolution 1715 extends the moratorium on placing small cell and related transmission equipment in the city until August 1. It also provides that the council could extend that moratorium yet again. But I think that certainly gets you past the time the legislature will be adjourned.
God, we hope.
The legislation would typically take effect July 1 unless there's a special enactment date, and there's not one in this bill. So that's what 1715 is.
Okay, I motion the adoption of 1715.
Second.
Motion by Sylvia, second by Mike. Is there discussion?
I think city attorney's explanation is in writing, and it is available in the council packet. It's informative. I don't have anything to add.
Jerry, do you have anything to add?
I don't.
Okay. Roll call.
Zimmerman, Jerry,
Yes. Aye.
Haverkamp,
Aye.
Casada,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Maher, carried.
And then the next item is Resolution 1708, which is a carryover from last month. It incorporates some changes to the city's public records request policy. The changes were presented at the last meeting. There were public comments made then. I didn't hear anything further from council. I made some changes to the last version, circulated those. So that's before you. If the council wants additional changes or different changes, that's obviously the council's prerogative.
I'd like to ask if we can table this resolution until next month when I sent off an email to an individual who made public statements, and I requested confirmation of some statements. I have not heard back from this individual, and I would very much appreciate the courtesy of tabling the proposed changes tonight.
So that's
I
a
certainly
motion.
support that.
That's a motion by Sylvia. He supports that. Is that a second then, Jerry?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Okay, it sounds like it carries 5-0. Anything else, Steve?
No, thank you.
Any questions for Steve? Okay, we'll go to Chris Anderson's clerk report.
I sent out my clerk report and the updated building and rental permit spreadsheets, and I was asked by Virginia Miller to let everyone here know that she is giving a tree presentation here at OUP on April 17th at 7 p.m. She had hoped to make it to the meeting but was unable to do so.
It's a tree presentation for...
Yeah.
She
Part of the
just-
tree board.
She told
Part
me
of the
tree
board.
presentation. I'm quoting her directly.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember. She told me something. I can't remember what else she said, but thank you. I think it's about pruning trees too, and that type of thing is what I remember. And she asked if it could be in March, and I said April looks better on our calendar. So, yeah, we need to promote that so people will come.
It's already on the city calendar.
Oh, great. Thank you. Any questions for Chris?
Well, we still need to get all the information to Chris for valuation of this building for insurance purposes.
Oh, she doesn't have it all?
No.
No, there's
So-
one piece missing, and that is the bill for the police lockers. All the other bills for furniture and all
Uh-oh.
that was submitted.
Okay. So she has that.
You're going to get an invoice at the end of March by the vendor for the lockers.
And listing for everything else from you, Sylvia?
I already sent it off to Kevin. Or who was our Austin? Is his
It
last
should come to me so I can
I already
tabulate.
provided it to him.
We'll just check with him.
Well,
Yeah, just check
okay,
with him.
let's
It's
find
there.
out where that stands.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
but if you have it,
It's
can you
three-fourths
send it
done
to
is where
Chris
it
so we get
stands.
it all compiled? Because I don't know what all Kyle has received. But
Three-fourths.
Chris is holding some of
I
it.
called him to let him know.
No,
that
no, I understand that, but
got
it's
it.
the other item, so I don't want to make sure there's any.
Oh, you mean there's others? Okay.
Yeah.
It was supposed to come to me so I could compile it.
Okay, so any other questions for Chris? Okay, we'll go to finance. Jim, I know you had a few little things to take care of.
Right. Well, let's begin with Resolution 1716. This was adding additional financial institutions. We were required through an audit several years ago that we have to do this periodically. And so I added, I don't have it in front of me, Steve, but I know we added Collins and we added Veridian. Or did we take that? Did we not add Veridian?
Right.
Yeah.
Collins and Two Rivers.
Two
Two
Rivers.
Rivers, yeah.
So I added those. When I went, and I'll talk about this in CD's investment, when I went in to talk to Collins and Veridian, Collins was much more agreeable and had better rates, quite frankly, than what I could get out of Veridian. So I know last month I talked about Veridian, but I didn't get very good response. So that's right. We've added those two.
Okay, well, I'll
So I
second.
move for adoption of Resolution 17.
And I'll second.
Okay, motion by Jim, second by Sylvia. Further discussion? Roll call vote.
Casada,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Maher, Zimmerman,
Aye.
Haverkamp,
Aye.
carried.
Okay.
Okay.
We're,
Let me keep going.
yeah, you got to
I'm on a
go
roll.
to the
Okay,
maturing.
we have
CD.
a CD that's maturing March 22nd, a week from tomorrow. I would recommend, and I'll put this in the form of a motion, but we're at about 250,000 with University of Iowa Community Credit Union. When you go above 250, I think I've explained before to the council, they have to buy more insurance, and therefore they reduce the rate from a stand about 50% as to what they pay us. We've gotten around that to date by taking cash dividends instead of reinvesting them back in the CD. I've gone now, and with this one maturing, I think it would be better to go ahead and take part of the money and put it with Collins Community Credit Union. It's $79,000, and probably be about 80 with all the interest and everything else. And so I would, what I'm going to propose is that I move that we invest at least 50% of our 7/22/17 maturing CD with Collins Community Credit Union.
And I'll second.
Okay, motion by Jim, second by Sylvia. Any further discussion?
Just a couple of points on this.
Yes.
It'll probably be around 50,000 because 49.9 they above that they pay extra 0.05% with Collins, so we get a little better rate with that. That'll still get us below our numbers. We may even go the whole kit and caboodle. So that's why I said at least 50%. And I don't know what the rate will be. And tomorrow the Fed will come out with new interest rates, probably the third increase in the last decade. So we'll see what that impact is. What I also find is Collins changes quickly and credit union changes about once a month, irregardless of what happens. So we'll see what happens. So
Okay, is council ready to vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Okay, motion carries 5-0.
Building inspector status, which was something I inherited working with Terry. You agreed last month to make him a city employee, and then the whole thing went to hell in a handbasket. Basically, if we make him a city employee, well, we've got a 42 question form that we've had to fill out for the state. They then would go back and retroactively charge IPERS to him and to us from his original date of employment. That's $80,000 at about 9% for us, and he's got about 3% to pay. So I just stopped it all. We are going to
Thank you.
we are going to have to fill out the questionnaire. They may still come back at us around this, and I think, you know, Steve and Lori and I are working on this, and we're keeping Terry informed. So anyway, that's where that particular one stands at this point. I just wanted to update you on that.
I just care that Terry has the type of coverage that he needs so that he feels comfortable providing our residents professional experience, because he was not carrying a business coverage for a carrier. And I think it's fair that if we want that type of credentialing on staff, we need to pay for it.
Yeah, it's in the warrants
Right.
tonight.
So, okay. And it should be a part of his independent contractor
Right.
requirement that he carries this. And I'm not sure if his agreement as an independent contractor was ever amended to include that.
No,
the
and I
same
think we're going to renegotiate the salary piece. He's asked for that.
Oh, I know he did. He asked for the sky and the moon.
I know. I
And,
understand that.
He already tried that with me, and
Yeah.
you know, that's his.
Yeah, and we need to talk about it with him. And then, as you said, then we need to get a contract around that particular part.
Well,
And,
we need to update our contracts.
Yeah. But anyway, that's just a status. No motion or anything like that. And I also want to thank Lori for her work on the working with the chief of police, bringing this thing. She followed it to the letter of the law and went to what we needed to do, which was to have the council approve that.
Good job, Lori.
Thank you, Lori. Okay, any other questions for Jim?
Well, I just wanted to point out that it's not easy to say no as a staff, as an employee. So, it really kudos to you for saying that's not the way the plain language of this policy reads. Otherwise, the city would be in trouble.
Okay, treasurer's report. Speaking of Lori, the treasurer's report, and she added a warrant later this evening. Maybe it was about 4 o'clock, and it was Terry Gert insurance premium $1,205. And so the warrants are before you. Is there any objection to paying the bills?
None?
Hearing none, the bills will be paid by unanimous consent. I think, are there any other questions for Lori or the budget comments? Okay, we'll go on to streets and sidewalks. Is that right?
Engineers report?
Yeah, that's good. The engineer's report. Josiah,
All
you
right.
want to come up? Or you got a microphone
Well,
here.
yeah, I'll try
I'm so
this if
used
it
to you
works.
being up here.
So you have resolution 1717. You received one quote for your final round of sidewalk repairs for this summer, considerably smaller than the others, about half as big. The quote was in the range we expected, so there's nothing unusual about that. The contractors.
Well, I noticed you were
used-
$28 greater
Yeah,
than the quote.
just be safe.
Yeah, that was good.
So this is the
Good
same
estimate.
contractor who's done the last 2 years, and there's no reason that I've heard of that they shouldn't be trusted to go again and do that. So.
I move adoption of resolution 1717.
Second.
Motion by Mike and second by Jim. Discussion. Roll call vote.
Josiah,
Lang-
I
Oh,
do have a question.
Question.
And that is, how many more quadrants of the city are left for evaluation and repair?
This is the last one. So it was divided into 3, and this is now this 3rd year.
Okay.
And now after this, we're going to
Every 2.
every 2 years. So eventually we'll get to the point where every quadrant is once every 6 years.
Okay, perfect.
So
Good question. Forgot about that. So that roll call vote for Resolution 1717.
Lane,
Aye.
Maher,
Aye.
Zimmerman,
Aye.
Haverkamp,
Aye.
Casada,
Yay.
carried.
Okay. Did you have some more? Oh, you wanted to talk about the street sweeping, maybe?
yeah. So I've got the contract proposal from our street sweeping vendor. They did not change their rates from last year. They held them the same. And so what we talked about was getting that street sweeping done earlier this year than we did last year. So the proposals from LL Pelling, they do hourly on the street sweeper, and whatever debris they come up with, they take to the landfill. The landfill charges them so many dollars per ton. $47.50 a ton, so those are exactly the same as last year. Looking back over the last couple of years, it's always taken essentially 3 days for them to do it. So we pretty much know what the hourly rate's going to be. It's just a matter of how much they take to the landfill. Unless they take an exorbitant amount, we're going to be right at or below where we budgeted for this for the year.
Well, except we've already paid the budget amount for this year because we must have done it late last year. Lloyd, do you
Well, it
remember?
was done April 13th, didn't you say? Or maybe you didn't get the bill until July? I thought in your report you said it was done last year, around April 13th, the street sweeping.
I think it was late April or early May.
Oh,
Right.
really? Oh, you know what?
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So it was late April or early May, so maybe it didn't get filled out till.
Obviously, it
Fiscal.
didn't because
Yeah.
it's already included in our budget this year.
I don't have that from those
So,
dates.
when do you recommend that it be cleaned?
Well, we looked at going with March, sometime into this month. Of course, it's always dependent on the weather. So
Yeah,
at this
we have
point-
to make.
In
sure
late
it doesn't
February,
snow
March
in
looked like a
there.
good idea.
yeah. Yeah. So it's probably
What,
April.
What I did was I looked at Easter, which is the 16th, and I looked up Passover, and that is the 10th through the 18th. And I thought, it'd be nice to have it cleaned up before Easter and Passover. So that's kind of right the week of the council meeting, April 11th. I was thinking that might be a good time. But for sure, it'll jinx it. The April 10th snow will come. But I don't know. That was what I was thinking.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the streets look nice when you have company over. And
Yeah, I think last year was later than we typically do it.
yeah, it was. It was. I remember that. There's a lot of little pounding going on in our room. Oh, it's a connection short. So that's if the audience is hearing some pounding. Oh, it has to do.
Is that
I
covered
see.
by warranty?
So,
Well, I mean, if we need to get it done, it got delayed last year, and
yeah, I don't want
we
to
just
get it.
need to understand.
I was thinking middle of April.
We'll just see how the bill falls. So
If not, the councilors can each take a street or a few, right?
I'm sorry I didn't hear.
The councilors can each take a street or two.
Yeah.
We
No, I just
kind
wanted
of
to
we
proceed.
sweep our streets, kind of, don't we? Anyway, I know my husband sweeps our street.
I pick up. We pick up our branches.
Okay, so you're going to go ahead.
So yeah, unless you have any questions, I'll get signature on the proposal so that they're ready to go.
Right. It's a budgeted item, so we didn't put it as a council vote. Did you have some other things, Josiah?
I was just going to note real quick in my report, I talked about the street projects, and in particular, the one of the areas was the Kosher and George drain that was on scheduled to be on there. I made some comments there to inform the council about what we found there, and we're intending to bid that out as an alternate for a like a biocell stormwater location. I pointed out that the drainage area there is much greater than, if there's enough room to do it perfectly, but it could be a start. And as I mentioned, you could work your way up the streets in the future. I guess I just wanted to get any comments or feedback from council on proceeding that way. I know it's something we did with the OUP project, and everybody's expressed interest in pursuing it. So
I was very happy to see that in your report. I think it's very forward-looking in terms of engineering features, especially in that location, which we've had lots of complaints from. We did some repairs to a landowner north of George because of all that water runoff heading in their direction. So I'm hoping I'm recollecting that right. But in any event, I think it's overdue. I'm happy to see that we're forward thinking, meaning we're not doing things the same old way. Bioswales is a new technology, and I'm supportive of it. And I hope that my colleagues on the table will be as well.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I think we ought to be doing it. I mean, I think we've kind of agreed that we ought to be doing that whenever we can on a new project.
okay, and that's why I thought it was kind of came up between council meetings and went forward with it. Do you have a preference if we bid it as an alternate, or that gives you the most flexibility? That's my intent. So
I don't have a problem bidding as an alternate, but
does it increase the cost?
Just to understand what the increased cost is.
Right.
But I will probably vote for it.
Right.
okay. Well, I think I just wanted to confirm. I'm pretty
What's
sure
the
I
impact
understood
if we
what
segregate it out? If we bid it out separately, what's the impact for bid solicitations?
None.
Nothing.
No.
Okay, so don't lose anything for trying.
Yeah. Okay, I'll continue to proceed that way.
Let me point out that all of these projects will be bonded based on the budget. So I will begin bonding proceedings, talking to Danos and Maggie Berger and these sorts of things, and I will come back to council. Before we spend any money with them, but that's what we'll be proceeding to do. It's about $200,000 with all the road improvements that we've talked about. So we would look at bonding that, and that's the way the budget was set up. So I'm just informing the council I'll be proceeding on that, but we'll be coming back for all the necessary approvals. Any questions around that?
Okay. Do you have something else, Josiah?
I don't. Just unless there's questions.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say I met with Josiah and caught up on a lot of projects, and that was I just wanted to thank you for your time, Josiah, and I even called you today to ask you a few more questions about projects. And I'm going to call you in the next week, too, about projects, because I want to make sure I have them perfect.
And I also want to thank him for the grant that we managed to get out and the points, and just keep our fingers crossed.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to sanitation, and Sylvia, you want to discuss various things?
Right. I wanted to bring up for discussion an ordinance that was introduced at the last meeting for urban chickens, Ordinance 201. It was introduced at the last council meeting with a purpose and intent to give this council body an opportunity to review the language and to get feedback. And that's exactly what I've been receiving as feedback from the public. It's been, I think, at a ratio of 3 to 1, very supportive, because people have read the requirements to the ordinance, which are as follows. Number one, if you will have urban chickens in your property, you have to give notification to your neighbors that you are doing so. That means a completed application that outlines all of the obligations that you are taking on as an urban chicken person. You're limited to 6 hens, no roosters allowed. All of your hens have to be enclosed in a structure. That structure must be of some consistent material so you don't end up with an unsightly structure. And I've provided a copy of all of for you all to review of the types of structures that are generally contemplated by other ordinances passed in other cities, and this would be the expectation in the language that's in the chicken ordinance for tonight. Additionally, and most importantly, is that there is a setback requirement. None of these structures can be anywhere near the 15 setback mark from the boundaries of what is your backyard. So you can't put any of this items in your side yard or in your front yard. It is only for single residential families. If you are a renter, you must obtain consent from your landlord. And all of these, all of this, given the state of our city, this will be driven by nuisance complaints, which is how just about all the other municipalities handle their situations. So for your information, I provided you all an urban chicken survey from the city of Dubuque that looked at Dubuque, Cedar Rapids, Rock Island, and Davenport, and that staff prepared the information for their council. Most of the people who are interested in urban chickens, who are they and why do they want this? Number one, many of them are doctors that work at the hospital. Number two, many of them would like to have they would like to have chickens on their premises for the purposes of having poultry and or eggs. And then we have another group where children are involved, and you have parents who want to have a few chickens, not necessarily the 6, so that their kids can have some responsibilities and know where their food is coming from. So we're seeing a lot of issues of food safety and food security around this ordinance. And I think everyone is these are conscientious property owners. They are perfectly happy to go through the process of having this ordinance applied to them. So what happens if we don't adopt an ordinance like this? Well, I think Steve Ballard can let me know, but these chickens are not being treated as pets, which means that Ordinance 55 and 81 would not apply, which means you can have any number of chickens or roosters so long as they do not violate nuisance laws in University Heights and your property. And they can be right up door to your side yard, to your backyard, etc. But these homeowners have approached Wally and myself and said, can you draft an ordinance that would allow us to have urban chickens in a responsible manner that everyone can agree to, so that as a city we can bring the best of property use in a responsible way. So I'll stop there and listen to your comments.
Well, I have a couple. I've received nothing positive around this. It's not an overwhelming number of people against it, but the 3 to 4 residents who've talked to me about it have been against this. They've not wanted it.
Have they read the ordinance?
They just don't want chickens. Okay. I have concerns. Number one, who you talk about a permitting officer. I do not know who that person is in our current system. I do not know if that person requires training within any means. When I look at these bird flu problems that have come up over Iowa with turkeys, and there was something recently in Oklahoma or somewhere with 200 and some odd thousand chickens. These diseases are caused by migrating birds. And I just, how do we handle if we end up with some kind of disease within this? Who's going to come in and handle it? These are just questions. And so I'm just not very much in favor of this particular proposal. I understand what people want to do, and I understand it, but these are just things I don't understand about it.
Sure, and I have an explanation for those. First issue that you raised is this is going to introduce all sorts of diseases. And right now we have cats that roam the city freely, pooping in other people's in private property. And I've received complaints from pregnant women who are telling me that that is not safe for them to handle. So that's a public safety issue already. So the city is doing nothing or zero right now to take care of free-ranging cats. Okay, so that's an issue that I think would be, if you're going to be worried about chickens, you need to be worried about loose cats on the city premises. Number two, you're talking about who will take care of these crises. Well, every city, every municipality has public safety and welfare authority, and that gets cleared up whether or not you're out in the country or whether you're in the city. If you have an animal that is subject to a quarantine order by the county, it doesn't matter where you live, it's got to be taken care of, and the quarantine doesn't care if the city has the resources to staff that quarantine or not. So that's one. For permitting, I gave us the flexibility. Yeah. I'm going to table it for you to come back at the next meeting. And so what's happened is the permitting should be taken care of no differently than the type of permitting we have for home businesses. Right now, the clerk issues permits for rentals. She issues permits for home occupancy businesses. This is no different. It's just another sheet of paper that's handled, and I just don't see a huge floodgate of people rushing to make chickens. We have 500 parcels in the city. I don't anticipate that even 5% of that would be taken up by backyard urban chicken raisers. So I think we do have the resources to process the applicant right now.
Okay, this is not something I'm going to stand up and beat
Nope,
all
nope.
over. But the Iowa City Animal Center will handle cats. I don't know if they will handle chickens, and we need to ask that. I'm not saying they don't. I would say that feral cats ordinance got passed over my objections.
Oh, did they?
Several years ago by a couple of councilors who had feral cats, and Mike can relate to that also. So anyway, there is an ordinance, and I would certainly
So,
entertain
and
getting
maybe
rid of
that needs to be readdressed. The
yeah.
cat
So
ordinance.
anyway, I voted against it, and I voted against it at that time.
No, but that was a public safety
Yeah,
concern.
I understand. Yeah,
I understand too.
So, and especially, it's also a nuisance that's not traceable, because you see the cat, you just can't grab it in the act, or maybe if you do, you have a video, right? But more importantly, these chickens would all be contained in your backyard.
Yeah, I know.
So I just also want to say, so your issue right now is all about safety. If
Right.
we had a quarantine come in, how would we handle it as a city?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else in this ordinance that concerns you for which you would not lend your support? Because you're looking at either the ordinance, or people read the plain language of our ordinance and they bring in as many chickens as they want, so long as they don't violate nuisance laws. It would be okay. And I think that's a problem. Again, that would be a problem of this city not being forward-thinking in how it arranges this particular use of property.
Yeah. No, I don't have that's my concern. And then, just safety, and also ensuring that the enclosures are proper, which I don't think is a very difficult inspection procedure. But anyway.
I don't think so. Some cities, just to give you an FYI, some cities have the police chief do the inspections.
Okay.
Others do have a building inspector who does the inspecting.
So mine is a safety concern.
Mm-hmm.
Sherry had
You done?
I'm done, yes.
Yeah, I'm all for chickens in the right context and even in the right city. We need somebody to administer the application process. We need, as was mentioned, enforcement. We need things that, as a city, we're not ready for. If we had a city administrator, if we had somebody to oversee this, it would be a different deal. It seems to me once we start getting complaints, it's too late. We have failed, in my view, as a council, not foreseeing that there are going to be problems and that there are needs for the infrastructure of the city that should come before we have an ordinance like this, where we have an enforcement mechanism and an administrative mechanism to take care of applications and everything else, inspections and whatnot. So one is a...
Can I ask you a couple of questions, Jerry?
Excuse me, I'm not for it at this point. At a later time, I very well might be.
So, Jerry, let me ask you a couple of questions. You mentioned that administratively we're not ready because we don't have somebody who has the applications. Are you familiar with how rental applications are handled right now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, and you know that it's the clerk that handles those, right?
I know it's the clerk that handles those, right?
Okay, good. And you also know that if there's any complaints, those generally go to the housing inspector, right?
Sylvia.
I'm just asking. I just want to make
Sylvia,
sure.
I don't care what you're asking. This is what I'm telling you. I would like to get a system where we have an administrator, that we have somebody as an employee who we can give these tasks to, knowing for certain that the time and money and everything else is there to take care of it, and that the enforcement mechanism is there. I'm way more averse to having the likelihood of having complaints that we're not in a position to handle. So my view is, let's get the infrastructure in place where we have a city administrator, at least part-time, on board, that is in a position to take the time and the effort to get this done. And the enforcement mechanism is also, it's not something you want to give to the police, I don't think, but maybe you do. I don't. So I'm not for it at this point. I think we have to mature a little and build the infrastructure a little better. Thank you.
All right, Mike, did you have any comments?
Yeah, I got a couple. Two big ones. Section 3, number 1. Maximum number of chickens allowed is 6. You worked... This basically comes from the Quad Cities, right?
The survey comes from
No,
the Quad
the ordinance language itself.
No, it does not.
Where'd it come from?
It comes from the one city that requires and actually has trainers on site to help them train, Marion.
Did you read Iowa City's chicken ordinance or North Liberty's?
I read about all of it from the corridor.
Okay, well, I think Iowa City's is a lot simpler. Plus, we would become a 6-chicken island in the sea of 4 chickens that are allowed in Johnson County, because Iowa City allows 4 and North Liberty allows 4. That, to me, is a big deal. I would have concerns about that. The other thing, in your edits for tonight, section 12, number 5, and in a statement you made earlier that these people, because I have not heard, no one has talked to me about chickens, not anybody. Or no, I'm sorry, not number 5, number 4. And you said tonight that they want to keep chickens for eggs and poultry.
Yep.
That's a huge change from anybody else, because if you look at number 4, no other chicken ordinance allows for slaughter of chickens. You can only allows chickens for eggs. But you amended this one to say no person shall slaughter any chickens in plain view within University Heights.
That's
so
the comment I received.
Okay, that's a huge change from anybody else.
So let me clarify that these municipalities that I looked at were all samples. They are not the blueprint for University Heights, and I think as Jerry Zimmerman has stated over and over again, along with Jim, that just because other cities do something doesn't mean we have to do so. And I think I was a big proponent of that during the TIF discussions. Just because everybody gives it away doesn't mean we should either. So thinking along those same lines, that's where that comment was inserted. And of course, I have an obligation to share the public comments I receive with you all. So they're included in that draft, up for you all to, come up with consensus, because that's how we pass work on this table, is by consensus. So there being no interest in this council tonight for a productive discussion on chickens, I motion to close discussion and table this ordinance until a later, more appropriate time.
Well, I would just suggest that the characterization of this or of us as not wanting a productive discussion is just aberrant, okay? You just wanted a discussion that didn't conclude in what you wanted it to conclude. That's not necessarily not productive.
I have a right to my opinion, Jerry. Thank you.
Does anyone else have an opinion? Okay, you wanted to speak? Okay. Ken Yagi, who's not coming to the microphone, says he doesn't want any chickens. Could you come up to the speaker? I mean, I see. This council wants to get more public input on chickens.
Okay, I'll try my best. Well, first of all, I think everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and as a tax, property owner, I also have rights to my own land, and I think Sylvia has some really good points as long as because right now it's kind of a gray law. I could have chickens; it's not illegal. I could put chickens in my backyard right now, and so to mandate some laws and require kind of like a civilized take on backyard chickens, I think that's my every right as a local, and I think that should be looked at. I know that there's very strong opinions about chickens, but I mean, the fact is, I think North Liberty, maybe there's like 5 people who actually have chickens, and they passed that law, so it's not for everyone, obviously not for you, but for someone who like me, we're starting a family, I would like, sorry, I'm like really nervous. I would like my kids to be more connected with the earth and nature, and I'm not going to take an elitist standpoint in saying like that, yeah, I just think it's not that big of a deal as long as someone's following the law, so.
Could you give us your name?
Yeah, my name is Daha Tawil.
And you live where?
We're just gonna remain as private citizens, but
You live in University Heights, though?
Yeah, I'm a local around this area, so I just wanted to put my 2 cents in and say, calm down, it's not that big of a deal.
No, and I don't. And the issues I raised tonight, I'm probably more predisposed than anyone else to support this, but I think that having the same, being in line with ordinances of the area that surround us are pretty critical, because I think you're going to find that it's much easier to have uniformity than it is to have a set of circumstances that are very different. And numbers of chickens and allowing chicken slaughtering are both big. Those are big differences.
Well, Mike, let's work on this together because, I did present this in February. It's now March. That's 30 days. Let's get our minds together and come up with something even more reasonable than tonight to present to council.
Yeah, it's not going to be for everyone, and it shouldn't be, but it will be for certain people, and I think we have a right to do that. I don't think it's anybody's business to what I'm doing in my backyard, as long as I'm, taking care of my property and keeping it maintained, sanitary, clean, all that stuff. It's not that big of a deal.
Thank you. Hopefully more people will contact city councilors, and we can put this on the agenda next month.
Yeah.
And
The legal
hopefully
opinion as to
more
where the
people will
ordinance
talk
stands.
Yeah,
about
I-
urban chickens, and we'll get more input from the public. Sylvia, did you have anything else?
Nope, I'm done.
Okay, so Mike, you have e-government.
Got the usual report, nothing big there. The other thing I asked to put on the agenda tonight was just a reminder that Ordinance 137 does allow us to issue a bow permit to properly qualified hunters, and I'm reminding us in March because it seems like we think of it after the season is already over, and given that there are more deer in town this year than there have been for quite a while, I think we need to do what we can to help thin that down.
Remind me what that ordinance says, Mike.
It says that if you're a properly qualified bow hunter and demonstrate and present your certification, you have to pass an accuracy test. Fin and Feather will do it. You present that to the police chief, and then as long as you have other valid tags, you may hunt on private property within University Heights. Basically, it comes down to we have one person whose property allows that, who happens to be a bow hunter, who lives kind of across the street from me and down a little bit. So,
Who's also our handy.
who's our handyman. So we need to remind him that we need to call our herd as we can with permits this year.
I have a question. I have some
And what-
significant.
Can I just ask
yeah,
one
go
more, and
ahead.
then I'll be. What's the season?
The bow season runs early December through, I looked this up last week.
It's the same as the state season.
Yeah, it's a state season. It's just it's December
don't know what it
through
is. I'm not
it's
100%.
December through mid-December, and then there's a second from late December into January for bow
No,
hunting.
the bow season starts October.
Yeah, it's
Or
October.
October through December. That's right. Through mid-December. Then there's a second one in December, January.
Yeah, so it starts October 1, and then there's 2 carve-outs. The first 2 weekends of December, a bow tag isn't good, and then it comes back in about mid-December.
Right.
Until about January
Right.
10 or 11, depending.
And they haven't announced the exact 2017 dates on the state DNR page yet. But going from 2016, that's right. It was October 1 to December, and then there's the second piece.
This urban deer hunting. It seems like urban is the word of the night tonight. Urban deer hunting, when you said private property, what does that mean? Whose private property?
The landowners.
The landowner. And what happens if the bow misses the target and it lands further out into someone else's property?
He walks out and gets it. If you take a look, Ordinance
No,
137
I'm just getting at
has
the
it.
point that I think it's unsafe, and that's a pretty. I understand that we're probably borderline, aggravated by the deer. Who's not? I know they ate all of my tulips in the last 3 years. 500 tulips became winter munchies. But the point is that one bad mistake, somebody can be out there gardening or doing something, and I'm just really worried about public safety. This is a huge safety issue. On Ridgeview Avenue, we had an individual who gave quite a bit of a scare when he decided to take it upon himself to go hunting with a rifle after a deer by the Dyax home. And it was extremely unsettling to see an individual armed to go hunting for deer in public land. Oh, and that person also said he was a police officer, so too bad. So poor judgment and armed with a rifle to go hunting. My concern is for public safety. I have done some research on urban deer hunting, and it appears that it's used commonly in large tracts of land that are public. So then they close down those public areas from use from the public. They post visible notice as to when the premises are going to be closed for hunting. So your caveat emptor, beware if you decide to go into an area and you're not wearing something colorful that's readily identifiable and you're a casualty. Well, that's just the consequence of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This is an urban setting. We've got kids, we've got teenagers, you've got parents, you've got people. I'm just really worried about a bow extending beyond the property owner's property lines. No consent is given to the neighbors to put them on notice when they're going to do this. At least with chickens, you're going to be letting them know when they're around. And they're not going to potentially cause a huge risk of harm to the individual. So I'd like to raise this ordinance again for the April meeting. And I have already asked the Zoning Commission since January of last year that they consider providing us with an opinion as to the merits of keeping this urban deer hunting ordinance or not, because it's a pretty dangerous item. And I'm willing to listen to both sides of the aisle, but right now I'm very, very nervous that nowhere else do people use urban deer hunting in small residential lots like we're proposing to do.
Okay, so I think we should go ahead and put it on the agenda for April 11th. And hopefully we'll get more opinions from the public about that too. Did you have something to say, Jim? You went to the
I think that's
microphone.
going to be on the agenda. Is Sylvia handling? I just want to know who's going to lead
Both
it.
of us. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll look at. Yeah, I have some of the very same concerns. Like I said, I'm not a hunter, so
You've got a fence, though. I've only got bushes.
they've been over my fence. I understand, in my backyard, which isn't very big, but they were safe because I have no weapons unless I take a knife after them.
Are there any announcements?
Yes. Farmers Market is on track. It'll be occurring in mid-May, I think May the 19th or the 14th.
16.
The 16th, thank you, Madam Mayor. We are now accepting applications for vendors. There's discretion to work with to waive fees. So if you think that the $5 per market is a little too much for yourself or your kiddo, just contact the market coordinator, which is me, and we'll make arrangements. But we are really looking forward to keeping the tradition going and seeing where it goes in the next generation.
And I noticed you had a deadline of March 31st
March
for
31st for a 50% discount.
And I think that's important to mention the 50% discount because I think people
Thank you for
would want to sign up before
See, that's
the
why I wanted Louise on the ticket, but she took a pass.
I looked at the website. I think it was the headline notice, not the vendor notice, talked about the first Tuesday. You may want to change that.
I'll talk to Mike about it.
Yeah, the vendor notice said.
Oh, one
Oh.
of them actually says June through.
I
I did
didn't-
see a few
yeah,
little
anyway.
typos, but yeah, I didn't send anything about that yet. But yeah, I did see some typos there. Is there any other announcements? Is there any objection to adjournment? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you all for
Madam
coming.
Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
Hope you get home.